What is going on, everyone? We are back in our Chicago Bears franchise in Madden 17, and it is time for the most exciting part of every franchise, the offseason. We've got a lot to do in this episode. We're going to be going through re-signed players and free agency, so we're going to waste no time and get right into it. First up is the retirements, and Tom Brady has retired a lot of big names here. Julius Peppers, Benjamin Watson, Steve Smith, Antonio Gates, Jason Witten, Vince Wilfork, Sebastian Janikowski, Joe Berger, Terrence Newman, Sean Hill, now that's not as big of a name. James Harrison retires, Andre Johnson, Anquan Bolden, Mercedes Lewis, Ahmad Brooks, Phil Dawson. We get into some of the free agents now. Most importantly, though, no Bears have retired. Cameron Wake is going to retire. Frank Gore, Robert Mathis, and Adam Vinatieri, AJ Hawk, Larry Fitzgerald. That's a big name to see go. And I'm not sure if there's any other notable names left here. I don't think so. Nope. And then two coaches, Jeff Fisher and Andy Reid, retire. So those are your retirees. Now it's time to move on to our business, and it's re-signed players first up. I talked about this at the end of the last episode. We do not really have any big names that need to be re-signed. Christian Jones and Sam Acho are the biggest names, and we're only going to be re-signing one of those two guys, so we'll get to that in a second. First, we are going to start at the farther end of this list here and kind of work our way through. Marquise Wilson going to be the first guy, and he is going to want $11.9 million for 3 years. I'm going to give him a little bit extra because I really like Marquise Wilson. I want to make sure he comes back. He will re-sign, so we have him for 3 more years. Daniel Braverman is another guy that I was impressed with in the preseason. Didn't have as good of a regular season, but he is a really, really cheap player, so we're going to bring him back. I'm actually going to give him an extra year more than what he wants. Cameron Meredith, another guy we brought back very, very late in the season. He was signed off of another team's practice squad. He only wants 1 year, 1.28. That's really cheap and will provide some depth as a guy that will fight for a roster spot as we head into training camp next year. Next up is Jarvis Harrison. Again, another depth guy. Only wants $1.29 million. We'll give him what he wants. He's back. Terrence Cody, again, wants 2 years, $6.72. That's a little bit more, $3 million for a backup D tackle, but we have no one else behind him, and nose tackles are somewhat hard to come by, so we're going to re-sign him. Silatolu is going to be back. He's pretty cheap. We're going to have him back. He's one of our key starters there on the line. Chris Prozinski wants $1 million. I'm going to try and undercut a little bit, 9-10, see if he takes it. And no, this is going to be the first guy that will reject an offer from us. Nick Kwiatkowski, we're going to bring him back, 1.44. Another guy is practice squad eligible still. He'll come back and fight for a spot again in training camp. And now we get to the Christian Jones, Sam Acho situation. And here, we're not going to bring both guys back. So I'm going to actually try and undercut both guys and see if either of them will resign. So first up is going to be Christian Jones, $9.9 million, just under what he wants, but he is going to reject that. Okay, I would have preferred to take him, but Acho, they both have very, very similar attributes, so I'm going to try Sam Acho now. 3 years, $9.9 million, and he is going to take it. So there you go. Sam Acho is going to win out Christian Jones. Good luck to you on whatever team you end up on next season. And then these are the rest of the guys that I am not going to be re-signing. Joshua Bellamy, Larson, David Fales, Brian Hoyer, Deontay Thompson. Not any real big names. We are losing some depth, but we're going to try and replace those here in free agency, which before we get to the point of re-signing players, we have some more moves to make. Eddie Royal, this was a guy that really, really fell out of favor with me. He had huge drop issues this year. So with a $4.75 million cap hit, he's not going to play a lot. He didn't play a lot in the second half of the season. So I go to the first team that wants a wide receiver. Lucky enough for the Bills. I asked for a third rounder. That's actually pretty close. I was surprised. And in hindsight, I probably could have offered like a 7th rounder to get that third. But I'm going to change it to a 4th. And we will be trading Eddie Royal to the Buffalo Bills for a 4th round pick in next year's draft. This draft doesn't really seem super deep to me, so I'm going to try and pick up some more chips for next year's draft, hoping that will be a little bit deeper. Tracy Porter, the next guy, down to a 66 overall, and that's just not going to be good enough, especially for the money he's making. So I actually tried to see if any team would want him, and no one wanted Tracy Porter, so I just cut him just to save the money. And then there's Jay Cutler, and this is the guy at the position that we need to upgrade. So looking at the teams that need QBs, it comes down to the Jets and the Browns that need QBs the most. The hard part here is Cutler has a humongous contract. The Bears just re-signed him a couple years ago, so he's due a lot of money. But look at this. The Browns have a ton of draft picks, way more than the Jets. So I'm going to try try and hone in on the Browns. We're going to try and trade them, I think. But first, let's take a look at free agency. And this is disappointing because this class of free agents is not very deep. DeMarcus Ware, 84, but he's pretty old. Vincent Jackson, an older guy, and even worse at QB as Ryan Fitzpatrick is the best option. So it looks like we will not be addressing the QB position via free agency. I hope that a big name would show up here, but there isn't going to be one. So it looks like we're going to have to settle for either trading for a QB or drafting one. Now, free agency isn't a total loss. There are some good options at left tackle and left guard. That left side of the line is what I really wanted to focus on. So I think we're going to come back and offer a couple of these guys. And then corner was the other position, and this is very weak. 76 is the top-rated corner, so it looks like we're going to have to address that in the draft as well. Now, going back to QB, I went around the league to see who had extra QBs, and it's going to come down to a couple teams. One is the Cowboys, which we're going to come back to in a second. They've got Dak Prescott. The other is the Raiders with Connor Cook. Now, neither guy is a direct upgrade over Jay Cutler, but I prefer both of them immensely over Cutler. They have similar attributes. Prescott's a little bit quicker, but there is a big issue with the Cowboys, and that is that Tony Romo is currently hurt, and it's a significant injury. We'll look at it in a little bit, but at this point, I realize Jay Cutler is not the answer. We're either going to trade for one or draft one, and I want to unload his cap number. So I'm going to start out by shooting for the moon here. I'm going to ask for the Browns' first-round pick this year. We'll see if they take that. And actually, I think I might end up adding something else to this. Yeah, we're definitely going to shoot for the moon here. A first and a second. They're green on Jay Cutler, so you never know. Let's see. Are they going to take it? No way. Not even close. So let's change that now. Let's try just the first rounder. Nope, they're still not going to take that. So at this point, I think, okay, we've already picked up a pick for next year. Let's just try and move into next year's draft, their first rounder next year. And they are actually pretty close here. So all I'm going to do is add our sixth rounder next year and Jay Cutler for the Browns' first round pick, and they are going to take it. So we have picked up a first round pick next year, which I'm thinking Cutler isn't very good. The Browns aren't very good, so that should be a pretty good pick in next year's draft. So that is taken care of, and we now have 0 quarterbacks on the roster. So you know some changes are coming to that position. But before we get to that, we need to address the rest of our issues. First up is going to be fullback. We let our fullback go, and I'm going to try and grab David Johnson. He's actually a little bit better blocker than Daryl Young was. Next up, I want to upgrade the return position. Marquise Goodwin is a quick guy, a good returner, but the issue here is that when we offer, we're nowhere close to the Saints offer, so we're going to come back to that in a second. Now on to left tackle, in between Khalil Monroe and Jokel, I'm going to end up going here with Luke Jokel, as he just kind of seems like just a slightly better option, a little bit younger than the other two, and also slightly cheaper. And then Bushrod is the one I'm going to go with at left guard, and he is asking for just a one-year deal. And that was the big thing here, that he is 33, but I think this is a good stopgap at an 81 overall, that he can be more than serviceable for the 1 year that we need him. And then going back to the returner position, Cordarrelle Patterson is another guy that I see, and he might be a cheaper option. He wants 3 years at $10 million, but I'm going to offer him 1 year for 2.44, just low ball him, being the only offer, and see if he'll take it. So these are the offers that I've put out there. Marquise Goodwin, obviously, probably not going to sign, but we'll see if anyone's going to accept these offers as we'll advance on to week 2. I'm starting things off slow. I don't want to go too crazy picking up a bunch of guys. We don't have a ton of cap room, but you'll see here, every single guy we offered that we were in first, we are going to pick up. So we immediately shore up a couple big issues that we had going into this offseason, and now we will look to make some more moves here. Now, as far as Marquise Goodwin goes, we don't need him anymore. We have Cordarrelle Patterson, so we're going to withdraw the offer for Goodwin. And then I'm going to make one more move of trimming some fat here, as Robbie Gould making $4 million. We can get someone much cheaper than that, so I'm going to cut Robbie Gould. This is something that happened to him this year in real life. He got cut because he was making too much money, so we're going to cut him. And then Josh Lambo wants 4 years, $10 million, but he hasn't have any offers yet, so I'm going to lowball him a little bit here. I'm going to give him 4 years, 1.44 for 7.84, and we'll see if he accepts it. No big deal if he doesn't. I have no problem giving him a little bit more, but if we can get him this cheap, we will save ourselves a nice chunk of cash, and he will accept. So there we go. We have not necessarily upgraded, but we have changed kickers and saved ourselves some cash that we can use elsewhere on the team. So now, at this point, Team is looking pretty good. We've shored up the major holes that I wanted to via free agency, except for one. QB is that glaring issue there, and we have two options, trade or draft. Now, as far as the draft goes, I haven't discussed this yet, but I thought of something, had I think a pretty good idea. One of the things that really pulls me away from Madden nowadays is that these draft classes are completely random names, and that was something back when we had NCAA. It was so cool that you could import the draft classes. So something I forgot about and realized in doing this episode, recording this, is that you can edit players in franchise now. So I'm thinking, and I'm not going to do this for every player because it would take too long, but maybe the top players at each position, I would connect them with a real-life counterpart and then edit the player to change them from this generic form into the real person. So for example, Zach Dudley here, and actually the top two QBs, I can't recall the other guy's name, but there's two QBs in real life that are kind of hanging out there as being top possible picks in this year's draft, and that is Deshaun Kaiser and Deshaun Watson. So I'm thinking those two guys at the top, they're pretty close actually in size and their grade potentials, things like that. So it kind of fits, and with just a couple tweaks suddenly transforms them into being just some random player that you can't connect with to a guy that you know and can immediately say, oh, we've got Deshaun Watson at QB versus Zach Dudley, someone I've never heard before. So let me know what you think about that idea in the comments down below. I'm putting that out there. If you guys don't agree with it, you disagree with me, let me know. I'll completely scrap it. It's not something that we have to do. It's something I thought of that would add a cool little wrinkle to the game and would be something to where you get into the next year and you see Leonard Fournette leading the Offensive Rookie of the Year or Jabril Peppers leading Defensive Rookie of the Year versus the randomly generated EA players. So let me know. Now, as far as the QBs go, we do have those two guys at the top who are really solid options. And the other ones, as I said, is the trade. Now, the issue here with the Cowboys, Tony Romo, 28 weeks with a PCL tear. He will not be back before the start of the season, so it doesn't really seem super realistic for the Cowboys to be trading Dax now, but we could wait and see what they do in the draft, because if they were to take a quarterback, then maybe they have the extra pieces there that they would be willing to give him up. We probably would have to give up a little bit more to get him, because I think they do value him pretty highly. But then that means we're running the risk of not taking a QB in the draft and then being left with nothing if we get to the start of next season and they won't trade him at all. Then we have to do something crazy, try and trade somewhere else. Or we could see what other teams, maybe another team will draft a QB and then we do it that way. So we're just going to have to wait and see how the draft plays out. We pick 11th in the first round, so there is a good chance possibly that both of those first-round QBs could be gone. There's only really 3 guys that I like, and the other one's a 6th-rounder, I think it was. So if it does play out that way, we could maybe take him late and then try and work a trade after the draft, after we see what the other teams do. So the QB position is up in the air still at this point, and let me know in the comments down below what you think we should do. Should we try and draft one of those 2 QBs, maybe trade up to grab one of them? Do we trade for one of those other QBs, Dax or Connor Cook? Let me know what you think, what we should do in the comments down below. Otherwise, at this point, I am content in terms of free agency with the signings we've made. We did not make a lot of signings, but I'm going to wait until after the draft to fill out the rest of the team. I'm going to give this opportunity for the other teams to pick up the guys they need to, just to kind of keep things a little bit more competitive. And also, this free agency class was pretty weak, so there's not really any other big names to really go out there and get besides depth, and that's something we really don't need to worry about right now. And that also means that the next step for us is the NFL draft. So the next episode will be the draft. We're going to spend the entire episode on that. To start it out, I'm going to give a detailed look at the watch list, kind of give you an idea of the positions that we're trying to focus on, the guys we're going after, and then we'll take it step by step going through the draft. This is a very important draft, probably the most important draft we'll have in this entire franchise. If we screw this up, it's really going to set us back. It's going to set us back another year because the free agency class was not as good as I hoped it was. We were not able to upgrade as many positions as I wanted to. So hopefully we can hit the draft out of the park and move into the second season in a much better position than we were in year 1. So draft next time, make sure you do not miss it. It is going to be a good one. And that is it for this episode, though. If you enjoyed it, please go and give it a like. I'd really appreciate it. And subscribe to see any future videos that I make. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.